Hey, ladies and gents, and welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. Episode 116. As always, I'm joined by Jordan.
Jared, welcome to episode 116 of the Controlled Interest Gamecast. It's great to have you here. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. No Dom this week, unfortunately. He's out celebrating his anniversary, I believe, so kudos to him. In terms of what we've been playing, pretty much the same for me. MTG Arena, I've been playing more of that. They still haven't updated it to have private matches. So that's kind of a bummer, but it's open beta still.
Jared, before I forget, I'm sorry to interrupt. Were you one of the ones that recommended Magic the Gathering mobile gamer bullshit for Kind of Funny Gamescast?
No.
Okay, because they were talking about, Jared Petty said something about, somebody recommending Magic the Gathering mobile gamer bullshit. And I was like, oh, if that was Jared, that would be so great.
That's funny. MTG Arena isn't available on mobile yet. It'll probably come to it in consoles. It's currently just on PC. I know it's not correlated. I was just pointing that out.
No, that's a good point out.
Yeah, so they don't have private matches yet. As long as it hits by 1.0 official release, I'm cool with that. Just been messing around with decks. Magic is great. It's a very fun game. The only downside to it is in order to play Standard, which is like current meta, like current officially usable cards. I don't want to get into a big old explanation about Magic the Gathering. In order to play Standard, which is like the most relevant competitive play in game shops and stuff, it's kind of expensive to be competitive. So MTG Arena allows you to like play MTG and not have to worry about spending a lot of money. And it's like Hearthstone. So if you love Hearthstone but you like Magic the Gathering, it's a perfect combination. And, the reason people love Hearthstone is because people fell in love with all of the Blizzard properties. I'm not really that kind of person. Overwatch is really the only Blizzard property I'm, like, super into. Was never a Warcraft person. Was never a Diablo person.
What about Artifact?
StarCraft.
You down for Artifact, Jared?
Dota even less. Yeah, no. So MTG Arena is kind of like my go-to because I love Magic the Gathering. Been playing that, having a blast. The daily quests and stuff aren't... The thing I like about its daily quests is that it's just like basically in without being direct, it tells you use a deck that's these colors. So for people who aren't familiar or comfortable with playing other colors of decks because they all have their unique playstyle, it gets people to try other stuff, which I think I'm like super into, because people get comfortable with something in any field and then they kind of are like, I'm only going to get this one thing, right? People go to a restaurant, I'm only going to order the chicken parm. It's like this place is known for... Yeah, exactly. And the quests are like, if you're somebody who only plays blue, which is a very controlling color, it's like, cast 20 red creatures. It's like, well, I either make a blue-red deck or I make a red deck and I try to win with that or play with that. And it kind of gets you out of your comfort zone, which I appreciate for people who aren't really comfortable with that. I play a lot of the colors. If I had to pick, I'm more of a blue-white player, which are notorious for having like super control counter decks. It's like the direct opposite of like a red-green deck, which is all about aggro, getting a lot of creatures out there doing a lot of damage. And it's funny because when you play Magic the Gathering and you have friends who really get into it and start building their own custom decks, people's personalities are put into their decks. My best friend is a very aggressive person when it comes to video games and stuff. He's very head through the wall before looking around to see if anybody's there, right? Not the type of dude that's going to play stealth games. He loves red decks in Magic because it's a very aggressive. And it's really cool that there's a card game that allows you to infuse your personality into the decks you play. And I've always loved that about Magic. That being said, I've also been playing a bunch of AC Odyssey. Still loving the hell out of this game a lot. Honestly, like, this game is getting me excited for the jump that we're going to have in 2 years, because we know we're not getting an Assassin's Creed name next year. I didn't play... Syndicate was the last one before Origins, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh-huh.
So, Syndicate... I didn't play Syndicate, but obviously, if you've ever played an Assassin's Creed game, you know the jump that happened from Syndicate to Origins in terms of RPG mechanics and all that stuff. We don't really need to get into that, but me and you both understand the jump that was made there in terms of implementing those things. Those specific mechanics that were introduced in Origins even went forward. I've talked about even last week how far those have been fine-tuned in Odyssey. So I'm excited to see what happens in the next 2-year jump. You know what I mean?
Now,
sorry, go ahead.
well, actually, if with your permission, I would like to make this a joint task force discussion because I've been playing a lot of Origins.
Okay.
So we can kind of bounce back and forth. I just got hyped for Odyssey. Is the crazy thing.
Oh wow. Okay.
I was telling you that on our chat that before Odyssey came out that weird how this is the first Assassin's Creed game basically in forever as far as mainline titles go that I wasn't excited for, that I wasn't getting day one, and just hopped back into Origins. And Jared, I switched the control scheme back to the classic scheme, and it changed my whole world.
Oh, it's great to hear.
So yeah, now I finally got hyped for Odyssey, and I started watching the trailers. I went back and watched their E3 stuff, and then also watched their season pass trailer, and really impressed with the way they're doing the episodic season pass and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, literally just last night got hyped for Odyssey, and my buddy and we were basically playing Origins all day, and just handed a controller back and forth, and I was like, bro, what if PS5 launch title is Assassin's Creed Ninja, basically?
So the crazy thing, I want to get into a little bit of that because there's some Easter eggs that I've seen in Odyssey that I want to. They're not story Easter eggs or anything. They're just random ass shit on the side that could be leading towards things that I want to talk to you about. But with Odyssey, so I really liked Origins, and one of the biggest things I liked about oranges, the fruit. One of the biggest things I liked.
Creed Oranges available now.
One of the things I liked about Origins, outside of Bayek and his whole story, I really loved that game. Is that there wasn't a lot of water. So you know how when Zelda Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild came out, and I think me and you kind of felt like aliens in the sense that everybody is giving this game glowing reviews. And I'm not saying it's a bad game, but we were we don't understand where this fairy dust is coming from. It's a good game.
I'm about to be experiencing that again with Red Dead 2 because people have Rockstar goggles like nobody's fucking business.
Yeah, but you also are coming from the perspective of somebody who doesn't really like Rockstar games to begin with. Not that it's a bad thing. I'm not saying your opinion is invalid or anything like that, but you also are somebody who's not even in love with Rockstar and having the glasses. You're just not even have glasses on, period. They're just not your type of games.
I do enjoy Red Dead 1 though. I'm playing through that. I'm enjoying that.
So the reason I brought up the alien thing is that in Black Flag, obviously that was a pirate game. I liked that game. I hated most of it because most of it took place in water, and I absolutely do not like the naval combat at all. Not saying that it's bad, I just don't find it interesting or fun. I just don't like it.
Could not agree more. And I couldn't I didn't spend shit on upgrades in AC3. I just got through those story missions and that was it.
Yeah. Sorry, by the way, if you hear a dog barking in the background. It's my neighbors. I literally can't do anything about it. So apologies for that.
Just call your friend to put his head through the wall.
So in Odyssey, it's Greece, so there is a fair amount of water. Not as much as Black Flag, obviously, but there is a fair amount of water, and that's my only the only parts of the game I'm not enjoying. But I mean, once you get to another location and you get a synchronization point, there's fast travel, so I don't really have to sail anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To get over to there, I've never liked it. When they announced Skull and Bones, I was like, this seems interesting, and then they said, oh, it's only the naval combat. I'm like, oh, so it's literally the least interesting part to me from Black Flag. Yeah. And so yeah, that's my only negative with Odyssey. Big thing is the sailing, but that's more of a personal gripe. I think the systems are implemented well, and I think it works fine. I just have zero interest or fun ever doing it.
How much is that stuff in Origins? Because I'm just about to roll up on that in the story.
Not really much at all, dude. Honestly, thinking about Origins, it's finite.
It's weird how they decide to implement these in certain games. Obviously, Black Flag, it was going to be a big thing, and they introduced it in AC3, but it's then we'll kind of have it in Origins, and then just really bring it back for Odyssey. And I don't know, it's weird.
I think it's just based on the location, right? If they ever do it in Japan, I'm assuming there'll be a bit of it, because it'll be.
But that's what I'm saying is where really you could have it in pretty much any game. You could have had it in the London ones. You could have had it in, or the London ones, Syndicate. You could have had it in Unity for Paris. It's it's just arbitrary to me. I don't know. This weird mechanic throughout this franchise.
Well, Paris isn't near any ocean, though.
No, but you can. I mean, France has a navy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could. Some of these are globe-trotting adventures. You know what I mean?
So before we head off to what you've been playing and everything, the last two things I wanted to mention is there's a Splinter Cell Easter egg in this game.
Nice.
The goggles, and in the real world sections of the game,
right?
There's somebody you talk, and I'm kind of doing this loosely because I don't want to spoil it for you. It's not he's not like a main character or anything. He's just like a side thing. But even then, there's a person you notice that is involved with communications that has Japanese heritage.
Nice.
So there's definitely a thread there that could possibly happen. And that's the thing, man, is Ubisoft knows people have been clamoring for a goddamn feudal Japan Assassin's Creed. And I think that's I honestly think the day we'll get the feudal Japan Assassin's Creed is when this franchise is waning. That's their okay, we got the card out of our bag, just gonna throw that on the table. You know what I mean? They're all in.
Maybe I'm hoping, why I said it was like a PS5 thing, I'm hoping they've got some bullshit excuse in their head about needing the power of next-gen consoles, and so they finally feel we can do it now, I hope that's what it is.
Dude, honestly, feudal Japan would be great. I would even love something in Vietnam or during the Ming Dynasty in China or something like that.
Yeah. They did Chronicles, which is one of the 2D ones, and that has a Chinese character.
There's also an Indian one, too, in that as well.
Yep.
But those aren't the same as a fully fledged Assassin's Creed game.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm really enjoying Odyssey. Cassandra is I would say now, I'm 25 hours in, is my favorite video game female protagonist. Period. Point blank.
Awesome.
And I obviously like other female characters in games maybe more than her, but they're not Mass Effect 2. I love Jack, I love Tali, but they're not the main protagonist, right? They're not the leader of that story. Obviously, it's Commander Shepard.
Yeah.
But and the one thing I'll say about Odyssey is that as much as I loved Origins, I think the dialogue and the story itself blow Origins out of the water, which is crazy because I love Bayek, but it's so good, and that's why I'm so excited for the jump. And in my opinion, what I hope ends up happening is that it's 1-2 skip year, 1-2 skip year, because I love having Origins, which was a very good game, and then having the game the year after that builds on that so strongly, and then skipping a year,
back-to-back, okay,
and then skipping a year. But I would love if that empty year is where we get the stealth back to the roots of Assassin's Creed, and we get the Prince of Persia reboot. Just fit it in there nicely in those in-between years. Every 3 years, give us a new Prince of Persia right there where Assassin's Creed is gone. Beautiful chef's kiss.
You know what, Jared? I'm going to slam dunk right now. All these people are acting we can't have Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed, which is just dumb garbage. Okay, I'll compromise. It's a fucking crossover. Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia. And it's about, being a prince in Persia. And it's a Prince of Persia game, and it's Assassin's Creed game, just like how Black Flag is,
or even if Prince of Persia takes place in the same world as Assassin's Creed. And that'd be even crazier because
Watch Dogs does,
And the crazy thing is that, obviously in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it deals with the Spartans, Persians, and shit writes itself.
So, you don't have to, worry about spoilers here.
Okay.
Do Origins and Odyssey connect story-wise?
Not that I've ran into so far, but I can almost guarantee there's threads that I've seen that are I see how it's going to connect. There's something that happens at the end of Origins that directly connects to Odyssey, but I don't want to spoil that for you. Saying
I'm talking
it.
Sure. I'm talking about the past stuff. I'm not talking about the future stuff.
You're talking about okay, so
Bayek.
with the ancestors.
Almost like how the Kenway connection. You know, the Kinway Chronicles.
Here's what I'm gonna say. At the end of, I don't think this is spoilery. At the end of Origins, a character in Origins makes their way up to the location of Odyssey, right?
That's what I'm talking about. And I was gonna ask about, like, have you been to Alexandria yet?
Yes, I have. The thing is in Origins takes place after Odyssey.
No shit.
Yeah.
I thought. Yeah, that was my question. Does it kind of just like is Odyssey basically just a sequel to Origins? But Odyssey, that's not the case.
So, at the end of Origins, there's something that happens in Greece. I'm assuming that's why I said I haven't gotten there yet because I haven't been in the game. I'm assuming that at the end of Odyssey, you see some of the stuff that happens at the end of Origins. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Like there's a tie-in there.
Yeah, it feels like you got to have a tie-in because they're so close. You know, like literally, physically, where they take place, and then the time periods.
Yeah, and oh man, and I always forget what's Bayek's wife's name. I want to say
Siwa is where he comes from.
Yes, I always think that's the name of the wife.
Sina his bird. Oh, Jared, I gotta know. Can you be your eagle in Odyssey?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God, dude. So, okay. Since we're, like I said, kind of a joint task force discussion here, I had a damn near religious experience where I just hopped into Odyssey, or Origins, and just started flying around as my bird and saw how high I could go, saw how far I could go, and I was listening to music while I was playing. Shout out to the Holy Drug Couple, some psychedelic rock, and I was just like, oh my God, you can go so far away from your character, and you can see so much of the fucking map, and it's just ridiculous. It's so cool that that's a thing and that they've implemented that, and I was like, if they don't bring this over, it's the dumbest shit, you know, because that's one of the best new mechanics that they introduced for Origins. So,
well, one of the cool things too, I don't remember if this is in Origins, but one of the things you can unlock is for the eagle to distract enemies as well, and
yeah, I know, like he'll come down and attack them. He'll come down, and when I'm hunting, he'll come down and, you know, pick off a gazelle for me, stuff like that.
But this one is like there's that, which I love, that continues in Odyssey, where like you're hunting like a pack of rams and you kill one and then he'll drop down and kill another one and you just hear his perch.
Right.
And you're like, hell yeah. They do that as well in Odyssey. But yeah, there's like if you're going to infiltrate a base, you can have him distract people on like one side of the base and then like sneak in from the other side. You know, he makes like a bunch of noise and distracts people.
I feel like you can do that in Origins.
I don't remember.
We were laughing because I've got my 2-screen setup, and my buddy was playing Origins on the right TV, and on the left TV we were watching footage of Odyssey, and the fucking user interface is 99% identical.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. We were cracking up, but they seem like, you know, obviously, as far as the franchise goes, they seem intimately connected, the DNA.
Well, the crazy thing is, from a gameplay perspective, it feels like a sequel, but they happened a year after each other. And that's what's cool. It's just like, you play Origins, and then you see all of those improvements in Odyssey, and it's like, this was just a year later. I didn't have to wait 4 years. You know what I mean?
I feel really like cool. At some point, Ubisoft has to have, you know, really figured out how to, I hate to use the word synergy, but they've kind of really got that thing going on, obviously, with all their studios. If they've got, you know, 346 studios around the world, essentially, you know, chipping in on all these different games, it seems like they've found a way to get everybody kind of close to the same page, at least.
I think what they do is, so Odyssey and Origins were actually being developed at the same time, and the reason, obviously, Odyssey is more polished is because it had that extra 8 to 10 months. Wouldn't be a full year, obviously, because of getting gold and all that. But I think what they do, and this is just an assumption, is that they go, okay, this is the baseline. This is the baseline engine you guys are working with. Go. And then those two studios work on that baseline engine. So the game we get a year from now, or 2 years from now, and then the one after that are going to be on a higher baseline. You know what I mean? I think they're like, this is the baseline, so that way the games don't look too different. One is coming out earlier, the other one's coming out later. go. And that's why like they have a lot of the similar mechanics and that kind of stuff, but they do feel different. The one that's has a little bit more time to cook.
Well, and they've certainly streamlined things, since Unity, because people freaked the fuck out over that game.
Like we get the Call of Duty every year, right? And it's like in a 3-year cycle inserted in with devs. I would love a Ubisoft cycle where we go Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia, Splinter Cell, Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia, Splinter Cell. Because 3 years in between games gives people enough time to breathe. Personally, I would like Assassin's Creed a little bit more often than that. But if you're telling me trading an Assassin's Creed every year to make sure I get a Prince of Persia and a Splinter Cell every 3 years on top of an Assassin's Creed, I'm down for that. 100%. Yeah.
I mean, I think generally people have stopped giving Ubisoft quite so much shit because they are nailing a lot of stuff. They've got a lot of goodwill with the Mario and Rabbids and the Rainbow Six
They just don't do anything like wrong, really. You know what I mean?
Not as much. They'll still put out Steep and obviously probably take a loss on that, but it's like, we need a snowboarding game out there, so we're going to do it,
Exactly,
so there's a lot of stuff that they're doing that's pretty smart, and if they can get Prince of Persia back, if they can get Splinter Cell going again, they got Far Cry. People are satisfied with Far Cry generally, and same with Assassin's Creed, and then they got little other things like The Crew and stuff like that, so they're in a good spot.
The thing with Splinter Cell is they need to make sure to find a way to comfortably transition that story to somebody else, because Michael Ironside isn't getting it any younger, unfortunately. Sure. So they need to get people in love with a new character that's not voiced by Michael Ironside. So they need to make sure he's in the next game that transitions that effectively. And with Prince of Persia, we talked about this. I want to get to what you've been playing, because we've already been kind of going along on my end of what I've been playing. With Prince of Persia, the fact that Assassin's Creed is moving so far into that RPG mechanic route, and it's less stealth based and less, I guess, focused. But you know what I mean by that. I'm not saying that is a bad thing. It's like obviously more open world and that kind of stuff.
It's more generalized in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I think that there's perfect room for Prince of Persia to come back, because for a while there you could make a case of like there's time mechanics in Prince of Persia is different than Assassin's Creed, but there are a lot of similarities. Now, what we think of currently as an Assassin's Creed game and what we think of what a Prince of Persia game would be, those are different enough, in my opinion, that they could both exist without an issue.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
Assassin's Creed is really not nearly as heavy on puzzles as Prince of Persia was.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And Prince of Persia, I think, would be really cool. Think about this: if I do think, in a lot of ways, Assassin's Creed are more generalized action games in a lot of senses of the word, but at the same time, you do still have the stealth, and you are still assassinating people, even if you have to upgrade your hidden blade, which is stupid as fuck. It would be really interesting if Prince of Persia was like this, obviously action puzzle based game, but then you had a lot of stealth stuff, and so you were almost kind of getting your more classic Assassin's Creed fix through Prince of Persia. If they almost brought those mechanics in, and you were crouching around and assassinating guys in Prince of Persia, it'd be interesting if they kind of ebbed and flowed like that.
And I really would love if they were like, this is Prince of Persia, but it exists in the Assassin's Creed universe. I would have no issue with that. That'd be super dope. But what have you been playing?
I talked about playing a lot of Origins and getting excited for Odyssey. I also got to say, I guess it seems like Odyssey's the first one that's like developed with like 4K HDR from the ground up. Obviously, like watching on YouTube, Greece versus Egypt is a lot more colorful, but it just seems like they really took advantage of that. There's just so many gorgeous colors in that game.
The water, is crazy.
Yeah, the water's gorgeous. The plant life, obviously, and the colors of the clothing. And so I can't wait to actually play it on my PS4 Pro in HDR. That'll be great. But so switching back on Origins to the main control screen helped a lot. And then I still have some complaints with it. I don't like that a lot of times options are taken away taken away from the player, which obviously I gripe about all the time in different games. But like, are you able to like speed up your horse? There's only one horse speed in Origins. Are you able to speed up your horse in Odyssey?
Yes and no. So technically you can make it run faster, but that's when you do the thing where it like gets set to a path like a road. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so it's exactly the same as Origins then, which I think sucks. I loved, back in the day with like Assassin's Creed 2, just like charging the fuck through Rome on my horse. It's so great, man. But
I have a Pegasus.
Yeah, I know.
It's dope.
It balances itself out, I guess. It just sucks that there's less speeds that you can choose when you're running as the character too. Like, and there's a lot of kind of nitpick examples of that throughout the game. I'm sure they really didn't change that stuff much to Odyssey because they're trying to simplify it for people who aren't like longtime AC fans.
And they want Odyssey to feel super comfortable for people who jumped into Origins, right? They want it to feel like a sequel where you don't feel like you're, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I get that, but in some ways it does suck. And this whole, I've talked a lot about the combat system. You've said that they've improved upon it, which I'm glad to hear. But just them trying to go so far in the influence of the Souls and Bloodborne series is just, it doesn't work out in the end. And which sucks. That I feel like Assassin's Creed is always trying to try something new and kind of figure out and fix its, melee combat system. And I think that they've actually nailed it. I think like Unity... Syndicate, is way too easy, but I think they're pretty damn close to nailing it in Unity. But of course, they couldn't take anything from Unity because it's a garbage piece of crap, Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say I agree with you, and it's in Origins. It's like you're using somebody who still kind of rocks Assassin's garb, so it is a little weird getting used to like fighting, but in a Dark Souls way. That type of combat. In Odyssey, it's not as like puzzling or I guess like immersion breaking or anything because you are the daughter or the granddaughter of Leonidas and you're like a Spartan, so it's like you would have craftsmanship and like you wouldn't know how to wield these different weapons and fight that way, so it's not as weird as like, oh, you're a dude in like a hood and yet you're trying to use ranged weapons, and it's like, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel as weird in Odyssey because of the type of character you're controlling, but in Origins I did have more of that problem where it was like, would this dude really be fighting people with a giant like mace? It just didn't feel right.
I've never had that issue. I mean, like back in Unity, could you use like spears and stuff in the Ezio games? I can't even remember.
No, I don't think so.
There's been, different types of weapons you could use for a long time, obviously. I've never had an issue with that. I totally get where you're coming from with like, for a while now, they've been making the assassin characters very kind of like Renaissance men as far as their combat skills. That's never been an issue for me. I just think like the actual mechanics and the design choices, the way that the developers handled things, like I said before, I just don't think that they're on the level of a From Software, and so they're it's a little bit clunkier. It's not as tight and just on point moment to moment, and so it's like they're trying to play in like the real big leagues, like the fucking World Series, and they're just not that that type of baseball team.
Well, not yet. I think that Ubisoft's good at refining things, and
sure.
There is a devil's advocate there of like they're a large studio, like a large publisher.
Yeah, it's a different situation.
Yeah, and the thing I will say is, at the end of the day, I'm happy to confirm that they do improve in Odyssey. Like, that's good. Sure. I agree with you that, like, they're not at the level.
You're right about the fact that...
At least they improve.
You're right about the fact that generally with Assassin's Creed games, they're constantly refining, and that goes back into kind of the... how they're somehow able to connect all these billions of studios they have around the world. But yeah, I think that there's still some... I'm finding a lot more enjoyment in Origins than I was. And really, I've just been fucking around because you know how I love just running around an Assassin's Creed game. So I will get back to the story at some point and see if I end up liking that. But like I said, I just last night got hyped on Odyssey. So whenever I end up finishing this game, I'll get around to that sometime before the end of the year, I'm sure. Besides that, been playing a lot of that. Played some more Bravely Default though. I wouldn't say there's too much to report there. Just still enjoying it generally. I do think it's a great game. I downloaded Valkyria Chronicles OG on Switch, but haven't got around to that. So I guess that's a little preview for what I will be playing. And then I mentioned that I've been playing some Red Dead. I'm not sure that I'll finish it because it's a pretty long solo campaign, isn't it? The original Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah. Have you gotten to Mexico yet?
Yeah. So I'll tell you where I'm at. I did the train mission in Mexico. So yeah, you basically have a couple missions with the train, right? And I guess I finished up after that, where like, you know what I'm talking about, Jared?
Yeah, yeah.
First get to Mexico,
Loosely, yeah.
Where you're defending this train, and then you get to a new town, and then I guess they steal the train, so you got to run after it again. So I just did those couple of train missions when you first get to Mexico. But I think I'm still relatively early.
I wouldn't say early. So you could grind out and beat the game by Friday, but the way you seem to play games where it's like, if you're in the mood, you know what I mean? If you're in the mood to just jump in, I don't think you'll be, even if you just like made it a point to hop in just the mood every day, I don't know if you'd finish it, so I wouldn't even bother even trying.
And so I think, I've kind of reserved at this point to maybe kind of play them parallel, like kind of finish up the first game as I'm playing the second game. But obviously I have a handle enough on like what the game is to compare the games when the second one comes out, and I did go ahead and pre-order it. So yeah, I definitely enjoy it. Definitely the Rockstar game I've enjoyed most. I think that talking about the Rockstar goggles earlier in the show, I think that that's definitely a thing. People talk about this game. Who knows how they're going to talk about Red Dead too? But this game, it's the second coming of Christ, and even for I think I'm generally pretty good at evaluating something from the standpoint of when it came out, and even from the standpoint of when it came out, I think that it's maybe not quite as good as people make it out to be. I think it's a great game. Enjoying the story. I think the characters are well done. Side note, John Marston is cross-eyed as fuck, which I just keeps cracking me up.
Are you playing on PlayStation or Xbox?
So I thought about restarting it, once I got an Xbox One S for the faster frame rate. But my TVs actually have a nice de-judder that I use on my game systems that kind of makes it look like the frame rate is faster, even though it's not. So I just kept playing on PS3, and the
only reason I asked is because apparently
it looks decent.
Apparently, that game performance-wise, in terms of like bugs and stuff, is way worse on PlayStation than it is on Xbox.
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
I really haven't. Well, actually, I've had one bug where it was a little side mission where I was following this other girl on a horse, and she got like stuck on a fence and just wouldn't go around the fence for whatever fucking reason, even if I tried to like push her out of the way. And that's pretty minor. But other than that, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, even just seeing cutscenes of like people playing it on 360 or whatever, like I just think the way they did John Marston, he looks cross-eyed. But
I was just saying that people have always talked about how for some reason that game was super buggy on PS3 as opposed to like when it came out on 360, and then with the the recent, like, you can play it on backwards compatibility with Xbox, and I think they recently have it on PlayStation, where you can play Red Dead. Yeah, apparently just the PlayStation version's like way buggier for some reason. I don't know why.
I think we might have still been in the era of, PS3 had come off of being like $600 or $700, and all of the ports when it first came out were all like secondhand versions, basically. Because, 360 was the like the standard console at the time. So, yeah, I think that happened a lot. That could have been the same with Red Dead. Like I said, I really haven't had much trouble with it, and the frame rate, it plays about like a PS3 game, and like I said, I have kind of a filter running on my TV for it that makes it a little bit better. But yeah, generally that's I haven't had any issues with that as far as it running. But yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I do think, like I said, it's a good game, and there's certainly even for the time it came out, I think that John Marston as a character is very janky to control, and I really haven't played the Fallout games. I wouldn't say this is on the level that people describe Fallout, of it being like barely serviceable as far as a shooter, to where you have to have VATS for it to even be serviceable. This is not on that level, but I wouldn't say this is like a great third-person shooter or anything. I enjoy generally, hopping around and plucking out outlaws, with my 6-shooter. But would you agree, Jared?
Yeah, like my least favorite part of GTA 5 is actually the shooting mechanics and Red Dead.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, when you make worlds and games like that, it's like, having that thing be the worst thing is cool with me, because the world is so immersive. I like the characters. I like just a lot about it. So it's like, it's hard for a game to nail absolutely everything. And it's like, okay, this is the hang up. It's kind of like with, for me, The Last of Us. I haven't played any Uncharted game, but I'm assuming it's the same. Like with The Last of Us, my least favorite part of those games is the actual shooting. Like I don't think it's very good.
Shout out to Ubisoft. They've got some solid open world shooter games with Far Cry and
Wildlands.
I think The Division is Wildlands. Hey, there's a good one too. I was actually going to say The Division, I think, is a competent shooter.
Exactly.
Wildlands is a great shooter. I mean, they've got a pedigree with that, with all their Tom Clancy games throughout the years, but especially now that we're in the realm of open worlds. But back to Red Dead, I think that it looks like a lot of the stuff that I would like for them to improve. They'll certainly have improved on with how long it's taken to get this sequel out. So yeah, definitely excited for Red Dead 2, and definitely plan on finishing up 1. Like I said, I think it's a great game. I don't necessarily know that it's like one of the games of last generation for me, but yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot too, but for me, it's like Mass Effect trumps it in a lot of categories.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Mass Effect isn't necessarily an open world game, but for all intents and purposes, that game is huge as hell. All of them are.
Yeah, I totally feel what you're saying.
And it's going to be interesting because Dom said he was finally interested. Interested. That word like 8 times. I don't know if he's going to get it at launch, but if he does, it'll be the first game since Odyssey, Super Mario Odyssey, that we all have together at the same time.
Super Mario
I think
Odyssey.
That sounds about right. Yeah, because I didn't have a PS4 for God of War.
Yeah.
Or Horizon. Yeah, so it seems.
I know.
Right.
I think.
Oh, Spider-Man.
Going to be on.
Spider-Man. We recently all played Spider-Man. Forgot about that.
I know Dom and I are probably going to be playing Kingdom Hearts 3 at launch, Jared.
I am too. It's going to be on Xbox.
There we go.
So.
There we go. You think it's going to be on Switch? You think it's going to end up on Switch?
I'm not going to play it there, but I think it'll end up there probably. Yeah.
Yeah, not by launch, but probably into next year you'll see it.
Yeah. Sekiro. Me and Dom are on Sekiro. I don't know if you're getting Sekiro at launch.
Yeah, yeah, I will. I gotta say, I'm not in love with some of the stuff I'm hearing about it. I wish it was more Bloodborne. It sounds like a gimped Bloodborne. I hate to say it like that, but that's just how it feels to me when I hear these interviews and news articles about it. So we'll see.
Well, it seems like an evolution from like what Bloodborne was to Souls. I think this is just them going in another direction.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope they're not. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be hard as shit, but I hope they're not like,
casualizing it.
Kind of.
No, apparently
Casualizing. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Brad and Ian from EZA, who are huge Souls people, like they're some of the biggest Souls people, they said from their time playing it, it's harder than any of the Souls or Bloodborne games.
Yeah, and a lot of people say, Bloodborne's harder than the Souls that came before it, so maybe they do just go harder and harder with their games.
Yeah, that one's interesting. I think Souls and I think Bloodborne is harder than Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3.
Right.
I think Bloodborne and
Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, Dark Souls 3 is easier than Dark Souls 1.
Gotcha.
But Dark Souls 3 has the hardest boss out of the trilogy, if that makes sense. What I was saying is, I think Bloodborne, from what I've heard, is harder than Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 2. But I think Dark Souls 1 would probably give it competition. But then it's a whole thing of like, well, one's way slower than the other, so how does that even compare? And they're different game styles.
Like, it's harder to play it if it's slower,
Yeah, and it's so funny. I love how people have different tastes, because like when I watch Bloodborne, I'm like, I can't wait to play it, but I'm like, this just doesn't seem like Souls to me. Like it's just like it's just
around, baby.
Yeah, it's really cool.
You know how I am about a dash mechanic in a game.
Whoop whoop. Let's get to the news. First bit of news: Black Ops 4 sales are bonkers. This comes away of GameIndustry.biz by Brendan Sinclair. During its launch weekend, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, otherwise known as Blops 4, brought in $500 million.
Black Operations 4, if you will.
Black Operations. $500 million in revenue. That number is the exact same mark as last year's World War II entry but isn't the peak. Black Ops 3 managed to pull in over $550 million during its launch weekend in 2015. Though it fell short of its predecessor, Black Ops 4 still set records for average playtime, Twitch watch time, and most combined players in a Call of Duty release launch weekend.
And it could end up selling more in the end,
Yeah, it did break records. Black Ops 3, I think, was the pinnacle of the Black Ops franchise. You kind of reached that mass hysteria. And I think we had that with Modern Warfare 2, with the Modern Warfare games, when it was OG Infinity Ward with Vince Zampella. Some people are like, does this mean Call of Duty's on a downward trend? No. I think it's just that it's releasing around the same time as a lot of other top games. And
people always talk about like downward trend with Call of Duty. People do not realize we're gonna have to have, I would say, probably 7 years, Jared, worth of Call of Duties of
declining
trends before it's like, okay, Call of Duty might be fucked.
Exactly. I think a lot of times people talk about how Call of Duty will release in any given window and do well, and obviously it does. But just like any game, when it releases next to other big titles, people only have enough money. As big as Call of Duty is, the reason it didn't hit the 550 peak is because $50 million of those dollars were spent saving for Red Dead 2 or buying a different game. Not necessarily Red Dead 2, but I do think that Black Ops 3 released in a less crowded window than Black Ops 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Odyssey, we had Odyssey.
Personally, I've been thinking, I don't think, other than Red Dead, I don't see that this year's much like really crowded to me. I don't think Tomb Raider's that big a deal. Obviously Spider-Man, but that's an exclusive. And then, I would say generally the industry is used to having an Assassin's Creed just about every year, to where it won't affect Call of Duty, even though they are closer together in release this year. So I don't know.
Yeah, but the thing is that this is also the closest Call of Duty has usually ever been to sports titles coming out, and that crossover between people who play Call of Duty and sports games. Also,
That's a very good point.
Also, people tend to underestimate how much Fallout sells, and that game's right around the corner too. And people could be...
I've totally wiped Fallout from my mind. So,
yeah. I think it's just a culmination of there being some players around the ballpark that's why it didn't eclipse that extra 50 million, but 500 million is still impressive as hell. Call of Duty isn't going anywhere. I've had some people ask me if I plan on getting the Battle Royale, for the Battle Royale. I have no interest, not because it's not quality. Everything I'm hearing is saying it's fantastic, it's great, it's polished. This is old man Jared speaking, I think I'm just out of the Call of Duty zeitgeist now, to the point where, like, in previous titles, I'd be like, worst case scenario, I'll purchase it and I'll play the campaign because at least I have that. We don't have that anymore. So it's like another knock in my personal interest in it. If Blackout became standalone and was like $30, I'd be possibly interested, but I'm not paying $60 for it. You know what I mean? It's just not something I'm interested in doing. But props to those who are enjoying it.
Interesting, Jared. Interesting.
Speaking of interesting, the second bit of news here, Spider-Man DLC and update news.
Yeah, baby.
So we already knew it was called The Heist. This is really weird. A weird anecdote I want to bring up is a lot of these places are saying we officially have it named. It's The Heist. I'm like, we've known the names of all 3 DLCs for a while. I guess people just don't look into it. Very weird.
Before the game came out, guys.
Yeah. So it's featuring Black Cat. It's set to release on October 23rd. We finally have a release date. It will focus on the relationship between Spider-Man and Black Cat, and will also come with 3 new suits. So those suits are Kane Parker's Scarlet Spider suit, which is the mostly black with a red top, if you're familiar with it. The Spider UK suit, which was recently donned by Captain Britain in Spider-Geddon.
That's what I'm pumped about.
Yeah, which is super dope. Like seeing giant-ass Captain Britain in it. Oh, so good. As well as an originally designed suit. So I know some people are kind of bummed that all 3 of them aren't comic suits. I'm actually okay with this because in order for Insomniac to make this feel like their version of Spider-Man, I'm cool with them throwing in originally designed suits. They're not always going to click with me.
Need to be comic suits.
Exactly. It's like Marvel has talked about they want to give these creators the properties and let them do what they want to do and not be beholden to that. And it's dope that they can release a DLC with one of their own suits. You know what I mean? I think that's really cool.
There's so many comic suits in the game already. Like, get over it.
Exactly. And honestly, I'm cool. I would love for it to be a kind of a guarantee that we always get one original suit, because that means that it's something I've never seen before. And I like the idea of seeing something new that I might not like or might love. Like, I like that, or just like, Amen. You know what I mean? So,
Amen.
All for creators' intent here. Alongside the DLC, Insomniac is releasing an update. It was actually meant to go live this weekend, or people assumed so, because they said releasing soon, but it looks like it's probably going to release alongside the DLC, which makes a little bit more sense. And the update brings New Game Plus, which I don't have to explain what that is, and an Ultimate difficulty, which is just a harder difficulty. Those 2 modes are going to add 2 new trophies, so it's not counting the trophies for the DLC, and they're going to be for beating the game on New Game Plus and beating the game on Ultimate mode. Me personally, I think I'm going to tackle those 2 trophies at the same time. I think I'm just going to roll into New Game Plus. I'm going to do the DLC first, and then roll into New Game Plus with Ultimate difficulty, because you get all of your gadgets and attachments and all that stuff. And that gives me a reason. I'm not going to try to hustle and get all those trophies, and beat it again on Ultimate difficulty, but that gives me something to go back to, you know what I mean? Instead of just going back and swinging around the city, I'm like, oh, I'll tackle my New Game Plus Ultimate difficulty and chip away at it here and there, you know what I mean? I'm not in a rush, necessarily, to get those trophies, but it gives me a reason to continue playing. Sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, I just said I feel you.
Oh, I feel you. Yeah, super dope. I'm interested to see. Do you think it'll be 3 suits for all 3 DLCs? That seems pretty reasonable, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the plan that they've stated is we're getting one October, November, December. Obviously, things could change, but if they stick to that, that'll be dope.
So, since we're on the subject of Season Pass, real quick note. Jumping back into Origins, obviously I already had the Season Pass, because I'm such an AC dude, and jumping back in, they've already released, not just the story expansions, but like your bonus weapon packs or whatever for the Season Pass. So now it's like I've got these legendary weapons, and I'm running around and looting all this shit, and I just can't get excited over it because I've already got everything legendary. It's like interesting how that works with Season Passes.
Yeah, it's a problem of not your fault, but it's a problem of getting to a game late that has a Season Pass, is because you end up getting the Game of Year edition where it has all this bonus stuff.
Well, I mean, it is my fault because I could just be like, oh, I'll get to the legendary stuff later,
Yeah.
But whatever.
The funny thing is, there's a pre-order mission in Odyssey called Prince of Persia. I forgot to bring that up to you.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Well, I missed out on that. That fucking sucks. So, you played it?
It's a mission that requires you to do stuff throughout the game at certain levels. I don't want to spoil it because I don't know if it's one of those things that like you get it at launch if you pre-ordered it, but then it's going to be in the first free content drop. That's what I'm assuming is going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it for you. So I'll just say it's something that I haven't been able to complete yet. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Cool. It also has to do with sightseeing, which is really interesting. Going to certain places and seeing certain things.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'll say with Origins and Odyssey too. I love that there's places that you can discover that give you XP that aren't necessarily the question marks on the map. They're just like historical locations. So like you have the question mark places, but you also have these places that aren't marked that you discover and you get XP for, which is dope. We were speaking about Red Dead earlier. Let's talk about it as a download size. There were some rumors going on that it's going to be about a 90 gig download on PSN and Xbox Live. That's not the case. As their official website, Rockstar revealed that for the Xbox, both physical and digital versions will require a 107 gig download. Kind of expected for me. I assumed that. It's still a lot. I'm not saying it's not a lot, but I actually cleared about 125 gigs just because I don't know. I wanted enough room there just in case. That being said, if I owned a PlayStation, it wouldn't have been enough space because they also stated that for PlayStation, if you get the physical version, it's a 99 gig download. But if you get the digital version, it's actually 150 gigabytes.
But you have a terabyte, don't you?
For what, my Xbox?
No, for PS4 Slim.
Yeah. I was just making a joke about like if I was a normal PlayStation gamer, I wouldn't have that room. The reason I have that much room on my PlayStation is because I don't really play anything on it.
Right, yeah. I will say, like, if you had a launch PS4 and with the install size of, the, like the OS on the hard drive and all that, this is damn near half your fucking hard drive.
Yeah. It's, 43 more gigs.
Gigs, which would be basically half your hard drive.
Oh, man, God. If Cyberpunk 2077 comes out on PS4, yikes.
Jeez.
Yeah, think about that.
And then these fucking assholes are going to give us 16 pieces of free DLC and just keep on adding to the list.
What jerks. Yeah, it's interesting. It's weird that it's almost 50 more gigs than Xbox. We talked about off the show about how on PSN's backend, there's a lot of reasons why it actually downloads stuff slower than Xbox Live. But that would correlate to you having to download the game slower, right? And it'd take longer. That doesn't really correlate to why it requires more gigs. Some people were like, "Oh, it's the exclusive content that PlayStation has." I'm like, that doesn't make any goddamn sense.
50 fucking gig. That's a whole game's worth, you idiots.
Yeah.
Jesus. Like I said, I think it's weird because, Xbox One X has to have crispier looking assets on it for the 4K. Like, it's got to be pretty much true 4K versus, the faux K on PS4 Pro. So it's like, how is it that much smaller? It's weird.
The crazy thing is this is baseline download. So like, aren't the more improved versions a little bit more than that, or they have additional downloads?
That's what we were kind of mentioning. That I don't know if you remember when we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I still don't know if they fixed the situations where a lot of times if you have a baseline console, you're still downloading the 4K game file. You just don't access the 4K version of it.
Yeah. It's just
That's
weird
how
to me.
It started when they had the upgraded consoles.
It's just weird to me that PlayStation's is so much bigger. It's just very weird. And it sucks for PlayStation gamers because that's another 50 gigs you have to clear. And though we have extra hard drive space, there's people that takes up almost half. You know what I mean? Like you said earlier, that's crazy.
There's no way that you're not downloading the 4K content. There's no way that baseline consoles aren't downloading 4K content. Even 100 gigabytes on Xbox, it's like there's no way that's not in 4K.
Yeah. It's just odd to me that it's so much bigger. Like the PlayStation download is so much larger. It's smaller if it's physical than the Xbox One. It's 8 gigs smaller, but then it's 43 gigs larger if it's digital.
Arbitrary as shit.
That's so weird. That definitely has to do with like PSN and the back end and stuff like that, and how they probably can process data. It's so weird. The last news story I thought was actually interesting. It was kind of a slow news week, but I do think we covered some interesting things. This last one broke, and though it's not necessarily a news story on its own, it does have an interesting talking point. So this comes away of Eurogamer by Wesley Yin Poole. The last of the war stories in Battlefield 5, which is the way they release their single-player campaigns, is in these vignettes called War Stories. We saw it in World War II. What was it? Battlefield what was it called? Battlefield
One.
1. Battlefield 1. Yeah, there you go.
Don't worry, it's a terrible name. Not your fault.
So the last of the war stories in Battlefield 5, so it'll be the last one out of all of them, will feature a German tank crew. They're in a Tiger tank during the twilight of World War II. As the German army begins to descend into chaos, a Tiger tank crew begins to question the ideology that put them in this position. The Last Tiger, which is the name of the war story, is set to showcase World War II from a German perspective, something fans had been asking DICE to deliver for a while. The developer did, however, make it clear that it's not a hero story. Daniel Berlin, who's the franchise design director, he went on to clarify and state, you may deny the actions you made, but even if you deny them, you have to live with the consequences. All actions have consequences, even in war, so it's an ongoing theme throughout the whole thing. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I hope that the mantra helps you understand some of what I mean when I say it's not a hero story. It's really about this tank crew going to war in this crazy machine, and they start to actually question why they fight in the first place. I think this is interesting. I think it's something we've maybe not needed, but I think wanted. I guess we partially needed it. I think obviously history is written by the victor, and there's a lot of revisionist history. That's as long as history's happened, you know what I mean? That's
Sure.
just the way it is. And I do like seeing things from another perspective, and it is a fine line you have to walk. You're very hard pressed to find people who think that Germans weren't the bad guys in World War II. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But that is to say, there are people who get caught up in these wars and fight on the wrong side that aren't necessarily inherently evil. Are they wrong for fighting and being on these sides? Yes. But it's a lot more complicated than that. And I do like that they're approaching this and having these people question, like, why are we even doing this? You know, what led us here? And I think it's an interesting perspective to take. And if the war stories in Battlefield 1 are an indication of how great those were done in terms of character development and storytelling and dialogue, I'm really excited for this. What do you think, Jordan?
I think it's interesting. Jordan Peterson on, I was listening to him on Joe Rogan's podcast one time, talk about how he's taught his students before that, you know, if you were a young person in the age of, you know, Nazi Germany, there's a very likely chance that you would have been a part of, you know, the atrocities that went on. And so, you know, shit happens. And obviously that was terrible shit that happened, but sometimes you get caught up in stuff, and you're a human being that doesn't necessarily agree with all the stuff that, you know, is going on around you, but it just ends up happening. And then it'll be interesting to see them, if they can kind of really dig into that kind of line that I was just talking about of, you know, these people are not necessarily sympathizing with the Nazi message or whatever, but they've unfortunately got themselves into this situation, and it'd be a crazy story to see how they navigate those waters.
Yeah. And the tank mission from Battlefield 1 was actually one of the most beloved of those war stories. So that's another thing is, you know, they understood that people liked that format, and I think this gives it a more refreshing perspective. And it is tough because it's not always black and white. Like, what if you're a 13-year-old German boy and you see your dad or hear your dad get killed, that your dad got killed by American soldiers? At that point, is it really about being on the side of the Nazis, or is it that you're upset that your dad was killed and you kind of want to avenge his life? And, like, I think it's a lot more complicated, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, you do choose a side, and I think that's the interesting take of, like, they're not necessarily saying what we're doing is wrong or we're completely terrible or anything like that. They're like, what put us in this position currently? And I think there's a lot of storytelling room there.
Right.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how it plays out. The thing with Battlefield 5 too, all of the post-release content is going to be free. That's something that they announced, and I'm going to be buying Battlefield 5, and it's actually one of the main factors of why I'm choosing Battlefield 5 over Call of Duty is because I really want to support that. The fact that they're willing to go out and be like, we're giving these really cool, intimate stories, Call of Duty's ditching single player, and we're giving you DLC for free, something Call of Duty's never done. The big DLC. I'm sure I'd get corrected and say like Call of Duty once gave a weed gun skin away for free on a Taco Bell hot sauce packet. It's like, okay, whatever. The one thing I wanted to mention too that wasn't news before we get into what we've been playing, Jordan, did you see the Xbox One X that Taco Bell is giving away?
I almost shared that in our chat, dude. That silver One X.
Yeah, it's like ombre.
Crispy.
Oh, it's so dope.
Crispy.
They like gradients from black to white. Oh, it's so good. And it comes with a white Elite controller too. So dope.
Hey man, here's looking forward to Xbox 2 because I think Microsoft's starting to get it down as far as the hardware look for Xbox. You know?
I'm so excited for next gen. I'm even excited for PlayStation. For obviously reasons. I can't wait to get to the point where we're giddy and figuring out, what's the launch going to be? What are the consoles going to look like? When we were having that discussion about the Nintendo NX, when those weird prototypes were getting quote unquote leaked, those are always fun conversations. I can't wait to have those.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In terms of what we're going to be playing, more AC Odyssey. I'm trying to grind out that game before Red Dead comes out as much as I can. In an enjoyable fashion, obviously, but I'm trying to just get through that game as much as I can. At least I want to get the campaign done. I don't care about doing everything in the game because I'll get back to that, right? But I want to make sure I get through the story because I'm really enjoying that. Daredevil Season 3 comes out. I cannot wait. Vincent D'Onofrio. We got a lot of returning characters.
Better have some Punisher, man. You better have some Punisher in there.
Yeah, with the cancellation of Iron Fist, I'm interested to see if maybe they do...
Oh, when did that happen?
Oh, you didn't know about that. Sorry for breaking news. Last week they canceled Iron Fist.
Wow. I
interesting.
Watched it yet.
Interesting.
I'll still watch season 2.
Interesting anecdote from that. People were like, "Oh, are they just canceling shows that don't do well on Netflix? That way they can, because of Disney streaming service." Apparently, that's not the case. Netflix has 100% rights over when they cancel the shows or how long they go on. Disney has no say in how long the Marvel Netflix shows go on, or if they're canceled.
It is the first canceled Marvel Netflix show.
I'm not saying deservedly so, but it's not surprising.
Sure,
yeah.
And we don't know about Defenders either. Who knows about Defenders?
Yeah. If I were to make a guess, if we were to get a spinoff, I think it'd probably be a spinoff from Daredevil as opposed to Jessica Jones or Luke Cage. Like a separate
that's
series.
What Punisher is.
Exactly. So we'll see. Interesting stuff there. Can't wait for Daredevil season 3. I'm trying to think what else.
Would you be down with Elektra season 1?
I'm not huge into Elektra, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the actress. I just didn't like the writing in season 2.
Yeah. I think she looked good, like costume wise.
Oh yeah, I think she looked good. I just didn't like the way they wrote her. And then I didn't watch Defenders yet, so she's partially involved in that, right?
Yeah, I'd say give Defenders a shot. It's 8 episodes, and I think it's definitely better than some of the solo stuff. So, I wouldn't say it's as good as Daredevil or Punisher.
My plan, I'm going to watch through everything except for Iron Fist season 1 and probably season 2 since it got canceled. Just personally, like, I'm bad with watching stuff.
Non-essential. Definitely non-essential.
My plan is to watch Luke Cage season 1 until Copperhead dies, because that's what I heard when the show falls off. Watch this like a crammed version of the second half of that season to like know what happens, and then watch Jessica Jones season 2, Luke Cage season 2, and Defenders. Obviously, I haven't written down in the order they come out, but I'm passing on Iron Fist. Just gonna watch
Daredevil.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna watch all of them, but yeah, Daredevil season 3 for sure tomorrow as of recording.
Actually just watched episode 2 of season 2 of Luke Cage. So far, I'd say it's pretty good. Or did I watch episode 3 as well? Anyways, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, I wouldn't say they're great shows to me. They're solid shows. They're decent shows.
Jessica Jones season 1 is actually my favorite. Maybe Punisher recently passed that. It's my second favorite season. I haven't watched Jessica Jones season 2. Luke Cage
over Daredevil 2.
Daredevil season 2, the first half's good. I don't like the second half of season 2.
Because of Elektra.
Yeah, I just don't like the
Elektra,
whole
Jared.
hand
You
bullshit.
hate Elektra.
If you were saying the first half of Daredevil season 2, especially with like the Punisher monologue, oh yeah, 100% the best. I mean, even
Dude,
Daredevil
if you don't
season
like
1
the
with
hand,
Kingpin.
you probably won't like Defenders. Just saying.
Anyways, I'm trying to think. Overlord doesn't come out yet, I don't think, on Netflix. I'm just trying to think of there's a couple of movies that came out on Netflix that I'm interested in. I need to get to Apostle. That recently came out.
I just watched Apostle.
Yeah.
You should definitely get to Apostle. Definitely.
And then the one with the dude from Westworld that recently came out with the
Hold
wolves.
the Dark.
Yeah, I need to get to that too.
From Green Room director.
But mostly just focusing on AC Odyssey. What about you?
So, play some more Origins. Shout out to Joe Rogan's new stand-up special. Just watched that. I saw him at the Ryman earlier this year, and so I had heard a lot of those jokes, but they were a little bit different, and it was a great special. I laughed a lot. So yeah, playing more Origins, and probably jump into Valkyria Chronicles, but we've got 2 big games coming out this week with Red Dead. That'll be after our next show, but not 2 big games, but you got Spider-Man DLC.
I'm going to be playing that too. Duh. I say it's at least
mainline
3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. We'll see. I'm not convinced. We'll see. But I will say both of the expansion packs for Sunset Overdrive were very enjoyable.
Oh, you said mainline, right? So just like if you didn't do any of the extra side stuff, 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So, excited for it nonetheless. And I tried preloading it when I bought the season pass. Like, I just wish stuff was more streamlined. You know what I'm talking about, Jared? With this type of shit, it's like, why can't I just make sure my DLC pack is like ready to fucking go, just like I preload my games?
Yeah, on Xbox I don't really have that problem because like everything just downloads automatically when it's available. So.
Oh, it should download automatically. I'm just like, I want to have it preloaded for, so I can play it as soon as it unlocks or whatever.
You can preload Red Dead tomorrow, which is good. Get the 150 gigs locked and loaded.
God damn. Yeah, and I will say this much for PlayStation. There's times when like stuff just doesn't automatically download that's definitely supposed to. A lot of times my games, I'll start a game up like I did with Origins that I haven't played in a while. It'll be like, now downloading the update. Like, I know that's supposed to automatically update, but whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes that does happen, unfortunately, with preload games. But anyways, let's see.
Origins, Valkyria Chronicles.
That's gonna be some shit. Even if I get around to Valkyria Chronicles, so we'll see. I might be going to see Venom this weekend.
Same.
More just to hang out with my brother than anything. But there's just not a lot. This fall is weird for movies, man. And then especially going in without Star Wars or
there's not a Marvel movie this fall either, which is really
movie.
weird.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. Yeah, no Marvel, no Star Wars this fall. So, and I don't think Fantastic Beasts is going to carry us, unfortunately, Jared. So, yeah, but might go see Venom. Hell, there might be something that I'm not thinking of, but yeah.
Red Dead, you said you might hop into, maybe.
Definitely said all the things video games wise, but like, I'll give a little shout out to Walking Dead season 9. Episode 3 is about to come up, and I think it's been quite a bit better. Probably still not on par with season 4 of Fear the Walking Dead, which is out of this world. And I just watched, I think episode 10.
I think it's the best the show's been in like 2 seasons.
Yeah, well, this is the best it's been ever. 2 seasons ago, it was at its worst.
No, I'm talking about Walking Dead.
Oh, Walking Dead.
Yeah,
Walking
sorry.
Dead, yeah.
2 different conversations.
I will say shout out to Fear the Walking Dead. I just watched an episode where I'll just say, like, no spoilers. Two girls are basically like, holding down this house together. Two of the main girl characters, and really awesome stuff. I would say maybe the best episode of Walking Dead I've ever seen. Any type of Walking Dead ever. So yeah, Fear the Walking Dead season 4. It's finished up. I haven't watched the last few episodes, but Walking Dead's still not quite there yet, but it is better. So there's a little shout out.
Nice. Thank you guys for listening to episode 116. Dom should be back next week. We won't have our Red Dead impressions yet, will we?
Spidey impressions.
We will have Spidey impressions of the DLC, yep. We'll catch you guys then. If you can, please follow us on iTunes. Leave us a review. It definitely helps. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Like the video. That definitely helps. Follow us on Twitter at CTRLINT. That's Controlled Interests Abbreviated. I am at Jared_. Jordan is at Malamotus. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.